purely co-op, something like Bombcorn, where the family had to do all the tasks given to them in the allotted time, it would have turned out the better product. At the very least, it would have turned out a more focused one. The competitive and cooperative elements of this game are at odds with one another and do nothing but detract from what should be this game's strongest aspects. All this being said, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because there is some solid stuff here. As you would expect from Jackbox, the presentation is great. The sound design is particularly great. The music is a nice listen and very fitting. Even little audio cues like give the game a lot of style. Style is the key word here. Devils has a lot of it. The character designs are great. It's got a quirky but endearing sense of humor. They even made it intro cinematic with a theme song. Also, shout out to the interesting implementation of the audience feature. Devils has a cap of 8, but any additional players that join get to all play as the family's cat, Wampus. Playing as Wampus is similar to playing as a family member. You get a bunch of cat-related tasks like coughing up hairballs, scratching furniture, and any task completed as the cat become inverse tasks for the in-game players to perform. For example, if there's a task for the cat to get out of the house, the family in response will get a task to try to get the cat back in. Definitely one of the more creative audience interactivity in a Jackbox game, although much like the rest of the game, most of the interactivity is nothing more than tedium, another set of jingly keys. I hear people often tout Devils in the Details as one of the best Jackbox games. While it's something I don't agree with or understand, this is definitely a game that has its fans, seemingly a lot of them in fact. I don't think I've ever seen anyone online critique this game to the extent I just did now. Most audiences don't care to analyze something like Jackbox to the same extent they do other pieces of media. Devils is clearly entertaining, and for a lot of people, that's the only bar it needs to clear. But it wasn't a fluke. Jackbox became the pioneer and the pinnacle of these types of games. While Jackbox might be just party games to some people, exceedingly well-produced games like Trivia Murder Party or Push the Button would not exist if the developers perceived the series in that same light. So many of these games exist in the high quality they do, because even though they can just be unfairly reduced to just party games, they weren't made as just party games. They were thought out, analyzed, critiqued, and perfected by a studio that puts just as much effort into a party game as any other studio would put into games people regard as being higher art simply because they aren't scrutinized under its genre. That is why I critique Devils in the Details and every other Jackbox game to the extent I do. This entire Jackbox review series wouldn't even exist if I didn't believe these games are just as capable as being regarded as art as any other game on the market. Because the bottom line is a game like Devils can be entertaining, but to me, the bar isn't entertaining. The bar is good. Games I can look at, may it be a party game or not, and go, that's a well-designed game. I don't want any of this to come off as me belittling people who do like Devils. If the game brings you joy, then that's more than reason enough to like it. Regardless, all that I've said is why I, personally, do not. I guess what I'm getting at is that don't let me stop you from enjoying this one if you do. But as for me, this is a family that is unlikely I'll visit anytime soon. I did not mean for things to get so introspective. Why don't we shift gears to our drawing game with the pack? Champed Up. In Champed Up, 3 to 8 players are asked to draw their own champions to compete in the ring against another drawing. The game starts out by telling you to draw the champion of blank. For example, a prompt I got was champion of the community pool. So in response, I drew little Timmy peeing in the pool. You then name it, and you're on to drawing number 2. The catch with the second drawing is that instead of being told the theme, you're just shown the drawing you're up against and need to make a preemptive guess on what it was supposed to be the champion of. After all the drawings are done, you go to the voting phase. 2 drawings are pit against each other, and any players that were not the artists of the fighters currently on the screen get to vote on which champion they think match the theme better. Votes equate to points, and the drawing that was based off another drawing instead of the prompt itself is awarded extra points for being the underdog. It's a system that works well, and it's always funny when you can immediately tell which drawing wasn't based on the prompt. If on your device all you're sent is guy who got out of a room, then drawing the room demon might seem like an appropriate counter, but that notion is shattered the second the prompt ended up being champion of the escape room. After all the battles have concluded, you go back to draw 2 more champions for a second round. The catch with the second round being that there are 2 prompts, the second prompt being unknown to both players. Once that second prompt is shown though, you can swap in either of your drawings from the first round if they potentially fit the new prompt better. Even cooler than that is that if you play multiple games of this in a row, you can not only swap out to a champion from a previous round, but also a previous game. game, potentially making for a game that only gets better the more you play it. As you would expect, the player with the highest score by the end is a winner. Champed Up is one of the best drawing games Jackbox has ever put out. In fact, I'd argue the studio hasn't had a drawing game this good since TKO from Pack 3, which is ironic considering that in many ways, Champed Up is a spiritual
373
successor
attempts.
to that game.
That's good.
Although there
Great
are
level.
a couple of things that give Champed Up the edge.
There's a little bit of annoying stuff with it, but
how good the
pretty
drawing
good.
tools are. At the time of this review, they're the best we've seen in any Jackbox inclusion. Jackbox has never had